President Bola Tinubu today presented his second budget since assuming office. Start the budget, a budget of restoration with a total spending plan of 49.7 trillion. Although he said 47.9 trillion, but there is an error in the total estimation as presented to the National Assembly. We'll be dissecting more tonight. And we shall be dissecting whether or not the president's propositions and projections are realistic or simply too ambitious. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Seun Okimbaloye in Abuja. Tonight, our attention is on the headline-grabbing event of today, which is President Bola Tinubu for a second time since assuming office in 2023, presenting or facing the National Assembly, a joint session of the National Assembly, and presenting how he wants to run the affairs of the country in a financial plan, his projections. Some people will think is the highest in terms of monetary value estimation in the country for as long as we do know, 49.7 trillion naira. That is a total estimate for the 2025 budget has now been tagged the budget of restoration. How much of restoration? We are moving from the budget of renewed hope to now the budget of restoration. They are chanting, on your mandate we shall stand. Is this budget enough to have a shock for the mandate to stand, or the economic woes that we are presently facing in Nigeria simply going to cause some kind of tsunami? But how much of the capacity the economic team are able to garner to ensure that this budget really lived up to its billing? There are a lot of estimation and projections and the indices of those budgets. A lot of people will look at them and say, well, are this realistic? Where did they get this budget from? Is there going to be some miracle? Well, if there are going to be miracles, we'll be analyzing where those miracles are coming from and how we're going to get out of this quagmire. We're hoping for a very great 2025 with the budget of restoration. Bring us that. Tonight, we'll look into that. But first and foremost, let's check out some of your political roundup stories.
The federal government has resolved to promote youth inclusiveness and participation in governance and leadership across every stratum of the society for effective engagement and development. The Minister of Youth Development, Mr. Ayodele Olawande, made the promise at the 7th National Council on Youth Development meeting in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. And the Governor of Rivers State, Mr. Siminalayi Fubara, has condemned the rise in blackmail targeting his administration, which he says has reached unprecedented levels. The governor was speaking at the inauguration of a road project in Opobonkoro local government area of the state. The governor emphasized that his position was divinely ordained, urging Rivers residents to exhibit patriotism by promoting rather than demarketing the state. Meanwhile, the governor of Edo State, Mr. Mondo Kwebolo, has inaugurated a 7-man administrative panel of inquiry to investigate the activities of the chairman and vice chairman of the 18 local government councils in the state who were suspended by the Edo State House of Assembly. Governor Kwebolo, who was speaking while inaugurating a panel of inquiry to investigate the activities of the suspended chairman at the Exco Chamber of the Government House in Benin City, says the council chairman had failed to produce their financial statements in spite of an extended deadline which he described as a breach of public trust. The youth wing of the All Progressives Congress in Edo State has appealed to the Inspector General of Police as well as the Commissioner of Police to advise the People's Democratic Party governorship candidate in the September governorship election, Mr. Aswe Godalo, to caution his supporters against causing any form of distraction during the ongoing election tribunal proceedings. A leader of the youth arm of the party in Edo State, Mr. Kelly Okongbowa, says the plea became necessary amidst rumors that some persons believed to be loyal to the PDP candidate plan to invade and disrupt the peaceful atmosphere of the tribunal. To Cross River State, where Governor Basi Otu has expressed satisfaction with the remodeling of the State Local Government Service Commission, which had been abandoned for over a decade. Speaking shortly after inspecting the ongoing project, Governor Otu explained that the design of the Local Government Service Commission office building would elevate operational efficiency in public administration and bolster productivity. Bayelsa State Governor Senator Doye Diri has resumed work following his annual leave. The governor, who was welcomed by political appointments and supporters upon his arrival in the state, expressed gratitude for the unwavering support and prayers of the people during his absence in office. Addressing the gathering, Governor Diri reaffirmed his administration's commitment to fulfilling its social contract with the people of Bayelsa State.
Thank you so much. Let's get to the meat of the matter tonight. Our attention is on the document presented by President Bola Tinubu today to the joint session of the National Assembly. So the president presented a budget of 49.7 trillion for the 2025 fiscal year to the National Assembly, although the president announced 47.9 trillion. The president made the presentation today to the joint session of the National Assembly, which held at the Chamber of the House of Representatives. The budget is now being christened the Budget of Restoration, Securing Peace, Rebuilding Prosperity. A few weeks ago, the two chambers of the National Assembly has approved the 2025-2027 medium-term expenditure framework and the fiscal strategy paper with a total spending of 47.9 trillion and a new borrowing plan of 9.22 trillion, constituting a domestic and foreign borrowings. Yes, of course, you must have heard the president said it on the floor. He said 47.9 trillion. But if you do all of the calculations based on the figures presented, you discover that that total actually is not the real total. The real total is 49.7 trillion. The budget office has confirmed this, and of course the presidency might be coming out in the next few minutes to also make that adjustment, which the error was made in the presentation. But the actual figure, which it amounts to, is 49.7 trillion. This is what the president presented, 47.9 trillion. But I tell you, it's 49.7 trillion at the end of the day. But let me allow you to listen to what President Bola Tinubu said.
Government expenditure in the same year is projected to be 47.90 million naira, including a trillion naira, including 15.81 trillion naira for debt servicing. Our budgetary allocation underscore this administration's strategic priorities, particularly in advancing renewable agenda and achieving its developmental objectives. The highlights of the 2025 budget allocations: defense and security, 4.91 trillion naira. Infrastructure, 4.06 trillion naira. Health, 2.48 trillion naira. Education, 3.5 trillion naira. As we embark on implementing the 2025 budget, our steps are deliberate, our decisions resolute, and our priorities are clear. This budget reflects a renewed commitment to strengthening the foundation of a robust economy while addressing the critical sectors essential for the growth and development we envision.
So that was a presentation of the president today. Well, there are a lot of drama, including when, this is perhaps not new to a lot of people. Those who are in the National Assembly, largely, most of them are politicians. You imagine the attention it drew when they started chanting, "On your mandate, we shall stand," a repeat of what happened the last time. Those who are ardent supporters of Bola Tinubu, from the very popular song that was being that used to be sung for him in Lagos, it has been brought to the national politics. But that drama is not our attention. Those figures are our attention. The implication of those figures, how it will affect the average person. And tonight, we'll be digging into those facts. I'm bringing tonight a member of the Appropriations Committee, a member of the Finance Committee in the Senate, Senator Jimoh Ibrahim, who has always advocated for more borrowings. Now, if you look at the debt servicing portion and the percentage of the debt servicing in the budget, perhaps it will get us talking. And some of these estimates get us talking tonight. Senator Jimoh Ibrahim, thanks so much indeed for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Nice to be here.
And I know that with your education outside of the country, you will imagine you'll be thinking about this budget in dollars. If you look at it in dollar terms, with an exchange rate on the parallel market of 1,600 so plus to the naira, you will imagine that this budget is actually small budget compared to some states in the United States or some other countries of the world. But in totality, talk to us about the estimate, 49.7 trillion. What is your view, as first and foremost, as Jimoh Ibrahim, not as a senator now?
Thank you very much, Sean. I think it was a fantastic engagement today at the National Assembly. The president brought a budget of hope, renewal, restoration, and a projection of 47 trillion. Budget office have to do the analysis, so if you like, we can put it at 49 trillion, and the spending of 34 trillion, deficit financing, about 13 trillion naira, or that about 15 trillion, if I go to your figure of 49 trillion. All of this trillion, by the time you put it to the realistic time of the dollar, is about $30 billion budget, $1 billion that the president presented. You will compare that to America's budget, and if you do so, you don't forget that America also is paying $45 trillion in debt. The most interesting aspect of the budget is the fact that it's actually lay a foundation for a robust future economy that will create that opportunity. But don't forget, the budget is futuristic. It's not the budget of today, it's a budget of tomorrow. So challenges are there that you mitigate against the budget. Now the good thing there again is that the debt servicing has come down very drastically to about 60-something% from almost 90-something% that we have before now. That means the president has made some fantastic savings, and which again is trying to distill into fundamental issues of education, about 3 trillion, defense, about 4 trillion, student loan moved to about 8.5 billion, to be given to the students this year. For this reform, about 100 million people will be off tax nets. And don't forget that revenue to tax ratio is Nigeria have the lowest, about less than 15% as of today. So meaning that about 75% or 85% of the people are actually not within the tax purview. So that's exactly what is happening. So to me, as Jimoh Ibrahim, I see the budget as a critical, instrument resulting from the previous year's reform that want to have a respite to the future and drive Nigeria into a foundation of economic robustness, particularly when you look at those critical areas that the president want to touch in 2025. I think, by and large, it's a fantastic budget. It's a deficit budget, and the amount of deficit is just about 3% of the GDP. So
3.96%.
That's even 4%. 13
trillion.
We will put it at about 4% of GDP. That's not bad at all. Because if you look at that,
you will want us to borrow more.
Well, you borrow more for development. The reason for this is very simple. The cash ratio to GDP is where President Tinubu is having challenges. So when he came in, the cash ratio to GDP was less than 1%. Now, as of today, the cash ratio to GDP is 1.5%. It's still very low. There is no cash. That's the problem. So he needs to create strategic engagement to make sure that he up his revenue collection in order to do domestic financing, and that is why the borrowing issue comes up. But it is if there are cash, there will be no problem. But you have a GDP of 1.5% cash ratio to GDP in an economy, it's tough to manage.
Are we? Are we very? Is Nigeria so attractive for lenders or to lenders?
Oh, of course. The people now, the economy is creating some level of legitimacy. Acceptance from the international scene. For example, the central bank went for 2.5 billion or thereabout euro bonds.
Yeah.
It was oversubscribed to 9 billion They have to return money back to the investors. Why are the investors wanting to subscribe from 2 billion euro
would you, as a business, I mean, as a businessman, would you invest in Nigeria considering the instability of the currency and the exchange rate?
No, you see, investment into Nigeria is not prem on foreign exchange alone. You look at the future. Okay, somebody who invested in Nigeria last year, at this time last year, and now you look at the exchange rate and what's going on with. It's a lot. You look at the tax system that's very friendly. I mean, 18% GDP to tax ratio. Which country does that in the world? When some countries are even having 92% GDP to tax ratio, meaning by 92% of the GDP and the tax net. Here you have 18%, we still have about 82% opportunity to tax. But you cannot tax, understand that, because of the economic power of the people. So this is why Mr. President is having, some friendly face, human face, to say that, okay, let me go all along to see that I increase the volume of participation in the budget and the economy, the size of the economy, GDP ratio, as well as looking at what do I need to use, even if I borrow money. He's telling you, I will service the debt, whatever debt I borrow, I will service by 15 trillion. 15 trillion minus 49 trillion. There is surplus money here in order to have opportunity for Nigeria.
So now the question is whether or not in time, most of the debt that we are servicing are in foreign exchange.
Yes.
They are not in our local currency. Some of the monies that we collected 1 year ago, we probably are paying 3 times of that amount because the dollar to the naira is almost triple the value at that time. Isn't that a problem in the first place?
No, it's not a problem because you look at it from different angles. If we are saying we borrow, we do this, we do that, you don't forget the fact that the economy itself, totality of the economy itself, when you are saying borrowing, you are saying this, the legitimacy of the people is increasing. The sovereign ratio of Nigeria has moved up. And once you increase your sovereignty rates, then it means that you are more people want to participate in the economy. If you draw down your sovereignty, then nobody's going to touch you. So in terms of international economics, we look at what is your sovereignty ratio. So if your sovereignty ratio is attractive, it means that foreign investors will come. And I can predictably tell you this. Just note it, by April, when you enter any plane coming from London to Lagos or America, you probably see more foreigners, than the black. Because people will take opportunity once your sovereignty increase in terms of rating, once you are telling us that you have simple economy whereby you can repatriate your currency back. So the next thing to confront is unemployment. And the president is saying that I am even going to look at the health sector. So I'm going to decrease importation of drug, but I'm going to ensure that drugs are bought by government and distributed to people. Now, is it not amazing that for the first time, Sudan will be getting 8 billion naira to support their education?
Look, I mean,
it's an incredible nice time.
It's interesting. You have not agree with some of the policies of President Tinubu because you thought that there are areas in which we needed to have service such that we create some buffers. But now, it does look like you think that the 2025 budget may bring some hope. But then I see a few problems here. If you are injecting about 6 trillion naira for social services, are you not calling for a problem of inflation? Because we now have had a lot of inflation in double figures, over 30% of inflation rate. Food inflation is there. Injecting that amount of money for social services, isn't that a call for a problem in inflation?
The president said very clearly from the speech at the National Assembly that we drag that to 15%. So how does
is that realistic?
It's very realistic.
How is it realistic?
For
over double.
Because you are not going to print more money because you are servicing your debt. We are 15 trillion naira out of 49 trillion naira. So obviously you have a large buffer. Don't forget about foreign reserve is $42 billion. Total budget for this year is $30 billion. We can even finance the budget from foreign reserve.
But it's not that straightforward.
Very straightforward. Central bank.
So you go to your foreign reserve and just find out.
We will have surplus in savings. As I talk to you right now, savings account is now recording surplus. Now, what I'm telling you is that if you have $42 billion in savings, meaning the president have saved money from his reform, $42 billion in savings, right? Now, and you have a total budget of $30 billion. Why are you really worried about the performance of 2025 budget? It's going to be a critical year of success.
Yeah, because the thing is that another part of it is that you and your colleagues have approved that the 2024 budget will still have almost 6 months of intrusion into the year 2025 calendar. So
that
it means that
is for capital projects. That's not for recurrent.
Okay.
The current expenditure, we didn't approve anything because the executive have told us they have almost about 95% performance or more. So when the issue came out at the Senate today, we just felt at some point to even extend the recurrent. The only thing we have said is capital project because money is going out to.
Would there be an overlap, or how would that happen?
There's an overlap.
So the question is that if the 2024 budget performance is recurring,
yes,
the 2025 budget here, when will it start?
No, I told you, 2024 budget extension is on capital project, not on recurrent expenditure. And the reason for that is that money is already advanced to contractors. They need to perform those capital projects by which they collected money. If you don't extend it, don't forget financial law says that at 31st December, all money not expended should be given back to the central bank. You don't want to go up or down front and the project becomes abandoned and they are not attended to. So that's why the extension at the request of the executive only for capital projects, not for, and is constitutionally allowed. In the 2025 budget, it's just a straightforward budget. Like I told you, you have a savings, you have a reserve of 42 billion. That even tells you, Shehu, that you're going to have naira stability in 2025. Because if you have 42 billion in reserve, and you are spending 30 billion budget size, you still have 10 billion reserve, which is much more. If you take your budget away from your reserve, what is left is even more than the money in circulation. So obviously speaking, we shouldn't be worried about the fact that interest rate can be driven down in that year because you are looking at the macroeconomic policy that central bank is going to introduce, in the year. Don't forget you are going to witness things like recapitalization of banks, foreign injection of money. You see how 47 billion. And the president said this very clearly, that oil production will move from 900,000 barrels per day to 2.02 million barrels per day. Is that realistic?
You are from the oil producing area.
Why would it not be realistic? Because
when was the last time we did over 1.8, over 1.9?
Check the security index. If the security index is positive, production of oil will go up. Why can't Nigeria be positive about Nigeria?
But why? I mean, I'm saying that it is good to be very optimistic. Yeah. But is it safe, rather, financially safe, for you to be overly ambitious? Because we're talking about production. Now, the estimation of the production will impact on your fundamentals, your revenue.
Yes.
So the question is that if you are missing it in terms of your target and expectation in your production, your revenue base will have a problem. Should you have force majeure or any other issues?
Yes.
Or you can even not meet your target on production.
Yeah. If you tell me what are the challenges that the budget may face, it's quite different. In that way, every budget in the world, in the geocentric political system, have one challenges or the other. In fact, the geopolitical system can be a challenge to any budget, be it United States or anywhere, or domestic political challenges, or it's insecurity. But give it to President Tinubu, whether you like him or not. I'm not a spokesman. Security index has improved. Before I come to you on this television, I checked security index of Nigeria from the global system. So I see positive security index, meaning that the army, soldiers, police have done excellent job in no city or local government or state is wearing Boko Haram flag as of today. So if you increase, just a minute, if you increase your security index, you have opportunity to produce more. So if you produce more, you have more revenue. So your revenue is even double. You are moving from 900 barrels a day to 2.2 million barrels a day. That is a lot.
The president is saying that he's going to spend 5 trillion naira on security.
Yes.
And it's tagged a budget of restoration, column securing peace.
Yes.
Rebuilding prosperity. I have a feeling that the president wants to do some things in terms of security. What do you suspect that is on his mind?
I'm a security man. He's going to spend more. He wants to bring in technology to resolve problem of security as opposed to using manpower. And that engagement will cost him money. He's likely going to develop an app that police will use, army will use, and track down security. It's a bad 2025 is the worst year for criminals. For those bandits, very terrible. Because 5 trillion developing app for security engagement, whereby you put up your phone, you can know how many guns are around you. You know, simple app you press. Nigeria developed that, and
has that been developed?
And the president said that.
Is that been developed?
You asked me what is the president mind, and the president said in the Senate clearly that I will approach it from technology advancement. He will use AI, you know, to distill AI into the security personnel and make your life comfortable for them. And if he's able to do that with 5 trillion. What is the distillment going to lead to? It will lead to more revenue as we're able to produce more crude oil. And this way, you make more money, and then the economy becomes more. I'm not saying there are no challenges. Yeah. I'm not saying that. But I'm just telling you clearly that, honestly speaking, it's a good thinking that Mr. President is doing. Because if you spend 5 trillion on security, fresh 5 trillion injection, you know surely we will have more peace. And if we have more peace, you produce more oil. Now, if last year you are doing 900,000 barrels per day, and you're going to do 2.2, you have doubled your revenue. And that is the reason why servicing ratio of the debt has come to 60-something. That doesn't mean the debt didn't increase, mind you, because the president said GDP to debt ratio now is 52%.
I'm interested, actually, on some of it, whether or not this government is going to do right in doing the right kind of infrastructure, not inflated infrastructure, not over-bloated kind of infrastructure, because it's planned to spend, here is it, 16 trillion naira in the area of infrastructure development. And that looks very interesting. Although I'm a bit disappointed that agriculture and food security is getting only a paltry 826 billion naira. That, for me, agriculture should be a very major, should get a major spending in 2025. For us to be, if we want to be a giant in security, we should be a giant in producing the kind of food that we eat. But my major problem here is this. If you are saying to us that, Bola Tinubu, Nigerians, give me your trust in 2025, on what basis should we give the president the Nigerian trust? If we look at the indices of the economy over the last year, they are woeful. They are terrible records of economy. And there are those who will say the economy team have done a very terrible job. The indices are saying that, not by anybody's criticism, but the indices are saying they are otherwise. They are in the negative, Senator Ibrahim.
So look at the geocentric economic performance.
Let's look at the indices.
I'm coming to you. Listen. Nigeria is on an island on its own. Understand that? Nigeria is a member of the Committee of the Geocentric World. Now the issue is that what happened globally affects Nigeria and any other country in the world. And the comparison you are doing, you don't dare compare the performance of last year's budget with the last year of Buhari. Don't go there at all, because you will be completely disappointed. Because Nigeria was on financial dangerous lane as at that time. Cash ratio to GDP was less than 1%. Borrowing was terrible. Servicing of debt ratio was about 98%. Now we are back to this 1 year. Don't forget, this government is just 18 months. I mean, give him time. If you look at the way Mr. President presented the budget today, it was simply gesticulating, meaning that he was, even by practice, was very happy because he looked into the future and what is coming to Nigeria, that there is hope in perhaps a hopeless situation that we met ourselves. So to me, don't look at the fact that, oh, the agriculture, this and that. You're thinking about total infrastructure. That is the total budget for infrastructure. They are cut across all sectors. The president talked about infrastructure in the health sector. He talked about infrastructure even in the military, infrastructure for the students. So it is not just agriculture alone. And let me tell you, if you don't have your peace, you cannot have agriculture. You cannot have food production. If kidnappers are taking a farmer from the farm, if they are stealing their products, there is no way. If they don't have road to carry their product to the main place to go and sell. So these are issues. And for the president, a lot of money have been earmarked for this security. So if you secure the country, then to him, you have peace. If you have peace, then you have development. But development without peace is not development. And if peace is missing as a parameter, then of course you don't get anything, because you talk about security for who, when, and where. And the president is addressing that. For Nigerians, in Nigeria, and right now. And in 2025, we want peace, we want security, we want restoration. We want to advance the hope agenda.
Senator, I love your optimism, and largely because you are optimistic because you are a member of the APC, you are in our caucus of Bola Tinubu. But the question is, I didn't make any comparison.
Yes.
I'm just telling you that in the last 1 year,
yes,
look at inflation rate, for example. Look at food inflation. These have grown astronomically. On their own, this government came into power and things have gone astronomically, almost double in terms of these indices. And I'm asking you that if you are a lecturer, of which you have been, would you pass a student who failed or who had failed by cutting the value of his mark by double? I mean, if you had inflation of less than 30%, and now you are having it over 40% in just in one calendar year, is that a failure or a pass? I mean,
let's look at it this way. You're talking about students failing or passing. Where, I said something to the government of Bola Tinubu when they first came, and they didn't do it, and I'm sure they must be regretting it. I said, publish the data that was handed over to you. Let Nigeria knows the state of economy.
So you don't think that we should hold Bola Tinubu responsible?
You cannot be held responsible when you are servicing your debt.
When he's held,
just a minute.
Held power for how many months?
Listen. When you are servicing your debt, before Bola Tinubu came, you are servicing your debt with 98% of your revenue. 98% of your revenue. Now Bola Tinubu is servicing the debt now at 68%. And you think he's a poor student. He hasn't done anything. The cash ratio of the GDP before Bola Tinubu came was 0.7%. Now Bola Tinubu cash ratio of the GDP now is 1.5%, double. He's not a good student, according to you. So let me tell you, you cannot solve all the problems in one day. Now look at the face of Bola Tinubu government in the international system. He's a liberalist. Look at what the fermenting or the standing of other liberal states supporting the government, by policy. Now when you come to the IMF and the World Bank, they seem to hate him when he first came in. What are they doing? What are they saying about him now? They want to give you more money if you want. You will want to support
those who believe that he's dancing to their tune. Dancing to their tune because he's taking their policy against the interest of the Nigerian populace.
This is not a fighting issue. When the Nigerian external system becomes so prosperous like this, when the last time the German president was here? When last was he here before now? Now you look at the president's visit to France, look at the president's visit to so many countries, to South Africa. Look at what South Africa did 24 hours after Mr. President's arrival. We change our visa policy. You can go and get our visa without even submitting your passport. All of this. What has Dubai done? Look at the debt owed to Dubai. Look at the central bank had $10 billion cash payment required from the day that gentleman entered that place. Invoices that were calculated like this. If British Airways will leave London and come to Lagos, and he will not be sure of refueling back because the fuel supplier were not paid after 90 days, that will be disaster. But now everybody is coming in because the central bank governor, just a minute, was able to reduce those backlog invoices of $10 billion to 7. And he's saying the remaining 3, we are doubting those invoices. In 2025, those invoices are not there, mind you. So that 10 billion savings is coming to pass in the economy. Look, I won't be part of this. If the government if Bola Tinubu is doing well, let's say he's doing well. If he's not doing well, let's tell him he's not doing well.
What is he doing right now?
What is doing excellently well.
According to Jimo Ibrahim.
By global standard.
All right.
And let me tell you, just a minute. I was in Chad. In Jamaica, was it Jamaica? What's it called?
In Jamaica.
In Jamaica. I went there for African Interparliamentary meeting. I sponsored myself. Nobody sponsored me. Now, I went there. I bought a bottle of Ragulis water for 5,000 naira. And when I was sitting in the 5-star hotel that we took, during the morning breakfast, we ate with a lot of flies in their own 5-star hotel. You will be doing that.
So you are comparing Chad with Nigeria.
But you are comparing Nigeria with America. No, so what give me the
I'm actually in the indices are standing alone. So I'm saying indices of 2024 against the indices of 2023 when Tinubu got into office.
No,
let's make that comparison.
In 2023, he came in when? March, May 27, 29. That is the day he stepped into the office. May 29. 2023. And today, he has spent just 18 months. Why not allow some stability?
Cambridge and Oxford scholar It's always a a pleasure having a conversation on the economy and the governance. And I love to disagree with you sometimes. It's a difficult one to do. It's a difficult one to do.
I enjoy that.
Because for someone who boasts of these kind of degrees, you must know what you're saying to be able to argue economics with him. Thank you so much, Chidi.
Thank you, Sean. Nice to see you again, and I love to see you in April when I come back again.
Thank you.
And you see Nigeria, you know, you will be in competition with
that is my prayer.
Foreigners coming to
Let Nigeria be great again. That's my prayer. That's my prayer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senator Ibrahim. We'll take a break, everyone, but we'll look more. Is it realistic or ambitious? The policies, the projections of the Bola Tinubu. More analysis when we return from this break, everyone. Join us again. Let's look deeper with some magnifying lens into these figures. I've got some expert now to get us inside. I have Dr. Chijioke Ekechukwu, who is a former Director General of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much, Doc, it's good to have you. And I also have Mr. Basil Abia, who is a co-founder of VAV Africa, isn't it?
Very for Africa.
Very for Africa, yeah. Thank you so much indeed.
Pleasure to be here.
Them they were looking into these figures for us. Let me begin with you, Dr. Ekechukwu. Give us an understanding of your overall assessment of what the projections of the president. Because look, in the real sense of it, I imagine this figure will be higher than 49.7 trillion. We are getting corrections now that the president may have said 47.9. But in the real sense, it's 49.7. Yeah. Now, when the lawmakers look into the details, they might jack it up. They will put their project, their own project into it, and it might go up to 50 trillion. Constituent project. It might go to 50 trillion. Let's wait for that. But what's your own overall summary of the projections?
Yeah, first of all, I remember you mentioning, I heard you mention the fact that if you convert this particular figure, though it sounds so big in Naira, but if you convert it to dollar, compared to many other countries, it's still a very small budget. Well, if we look at the projections that have been made, first of all, I started getting worried when I saw that the exchange rate was projected at 1,500.
Yeah.
You know, that exchange rate is to tell Nigerians that there is nothing we plan to do that will bring the exchange rate lower, because Nigerians are still thinking that probably that rate can come lower than 1,500, maybe up to 1,000.
So there is a problem.
There's a problem, with that projection, because you are dampening our hopes of reduction in exchange rates. All you're telling us is, yes, exchange rate is meant to remain here, and in fact, if you have made such projection, that means you even expect it to still remain high. When you're talking about the production capacity of our oil, for oil pricing, we already see that it's higher than the market rate at this time. But for the production output projection of oil, we are seeing
over 2 million.
2 million barrels
per day.
It's going to be a far cry, because that's a tall order for us to achieve, because if you consider where we are today, nothing, we haven't seen that which is going to change or increase the production or productivity of oil to take it to 2 million barrels a day. So we have seen that to mean that if there were things we are seeing on ground, we would say, yes, it's possible to achieve. But, we already said it's good to be ambitious. Maybe there are things they know that we don't know. They have not told us. But if it is just what we have seen on ground, that is very ambitious, because in the next 2 years or 3 years, yes, that can be achieved. But in the just current year of 2025, I think it's a little ambitious. When you also talk about I mentioned the exchange rate, yeah?
Yeah.
The exchange rate is worrisome. The inflation rate is another very ambitious one. Now, you cannot achieve that level of exchange rate of 15%, right? 15%, with the kind of the inflation rate with the kind of exchange rate we have today, with the kind of petroleum product pricing we're having. So you are going to, first of all, ask, what are those things that are the drivers of inflation rate? The two of them still remain high, yet you want to pull it in. So what else is going to pull it down? There is a third one, insecurity. It's still there. So what is that thing that is going to bring it down to 15%? That we cannot see, and that's why I say that one is almost not possible to achieve.
Let me ask Mr. Abia, in your own, I know you and your colleagues at Very Africa, yes. You've been distilling the picture, I mean the figures and looking in details. And I saw your report. I see that you thought your figures and your projection for 2025, they are in direct opposite to what the federal government is putting for. Your summary of the president's projection today.
The projections are not realistic, and the most important thing I think for Nigerians to understand is what are the assumptions driving those projections. Now, if you say you want to do 15% headline inflation rate on aggregate for 2025, the core drivers, you have to be able to show us that you're going to realistically drop down those drivers, reduce their efficacy and their frequency. Unfortunately, you cannot do 15% headline inflation rate when you're producing less than 2 million barrels per day. Now, I know that they're projecting 2 million barrels per day, but it's impossible to do 2 million barrels per day when you're currently doing 1.53 million barrels right now.
I believe in miracles.
Yes, and then Shell are deciding to invest $5 billion into the Nigerian deep offshore. The reason for that is they think that they can develop that Bonga North oil field to about 250,000 at peak performance somewhere after 2030. But from 2029, 2030, when that field comes online, it will only produce 110,000 barrels. So for Nigeria to realistically produce, you can see the timeline for developing one deep water field. For Nigeria to be able to produce 2 million barrels next year, we need 5 Shell Bonga North fields, and we need to have a miracle where they start developing and start producing next year. But it's not possible for them to produce next year. It will take 3 years to develop. There are other assumptions as well. What if Trump comes in as president by January 6th and decides to pump more oil? If you're pumping more oil, you're reducing the price. Currently, Brent crude is selling for $73. The budget is projecting $70 for that. Yeah. In our own projections, Very Africa's macroeconomic outlook projections for 2025, our best case scenario for inflation and oil production is if we do 2 million barrels per day, selling at 90 barrels per barrel. And I don't see how we're going to be able to sell.
So you're projecting at Very Africa, your worst case scenario is on inflation rate. What is it?
Worst case scenario is 37%. Worst case scenario. Best case scenario is 31%. And you can see the federal
government...
Best case
is what?
Yes, 31%.
And we currently are?
We're currently at 34%, but the presidency and the federal government are saying that best case scenario next year will be 15% headline inflation. I don't see how that works with all the assumptions on the table. And there are more assumptions. Like you said, there are the intangibles. Security, for instance. Security is the major reason why cultivation areas for agriculture continues to shrink year by year. We used to do, at our peak, we used to do 40 million hectares. Now we're hovering between 33 million hectares to 34 million hectares. Why are we shrinking? Because a lot of farmers can no longer use their farmlands because bandits have taken over them. And we just had a transnational terror group from Niger join us 2-3 months ago. You know, and they've already started causing mayhem. These are the intangibles and the tangibles that are driving the reason or the rationale.
I'm privy to some of the efforts of the security agencies, some of which by level of privilege to some persons who are doing some great work, showing some potential that we might be winning the war against terror, against some of our major enemies that are threatening our security in the land. I'm very optimistic, and my prayers every day is some of these guys, gallant soldiers, gallant men on the field, God will help them and they'll be able to rule these guys out. But question here, right, is the budget office, for example, and the economic team. I imagine that they are an offshoot of the economic team. These guys see what the economic team are driving on the ground. Is it that their own permutations or their readings are far-fetched from what the guys on the ground? Because I was putting it to Senator Jim Abraham and say, look at the indices 1 year ago compared to now. It's a far cry. And the fact is, as much if you're a lover of Bola Tinubu, you want him to do well. But the fact remains that, look, the facts are the facts, the figures are the figures. We've grown, our inflation rate has gone astronomically high. I mean, we've not seen that in years and years in this country. Food inflation, horrible. And it's driving the prices of commodities so high. So the question is, the budget office and the economic, the realistic fiscal economy team, is it that they are talking at different...
Okay, first of all, I'm sure you know that we have always faulted the budget system of the country. The way the budget is generated, where various MDAs will just come up with figures, and you see the same items you saw the previous year. All they will do is just to add 20% or 30% on all those items that also came and were purchased the previous year. We've always faulted it because what we need is a zero-sum budget. Now, this budget is so that you see the same items, and there's just nobody that goes through all these items to say, look, gentlemen, we saw these items in your budget last year. Why is it coming? Is it a new ministry? Why are you buying the same number of computers? Why are you buying the same number of vehicles? Why are you buying the same number of machines? So, even in that place, we have faults coming from those areas. Now, when you take this to budget office, their own is just to look at what have come from various ministries and parastatals. The budget office cannot actually analyze or check or take the figures out or analyze the figures to know what is right or what is wrong because of the size and volume of what they're going to look at. So the problem comes from how the ministries and parastatals come up with their figures. We need to deal with that head on. Until we deal with that problem, we're going to be having this kind of budget system where we are not sure of the figures there and things that are going to cause problems in the future. We're not very deliberate and particular about our budget and how we develop our budget. That is just the problem. As an SBU, private sector SBU, you know that budget sessions are done. You sit down, you defend all the various items. You and I know that we don't do that in ministries and parastatals. And so that is just where the first problem starts from. Again, you already mentioned the issues of constituency projects that must enter into the budget. And so these are things you don't see in many other Western countries where things are done well. Question is, what is constituency projects? Up to today, somebody needs to explain that to me. I knew that explanation, and that is just the problem I usually have talking about budget. Please, we need to do the right things and get it right if we really want to have reforms and grow the economy and do the right things.
Yeah, I mean, look at, I'm interested in some of the figures that I'm seeing in your report at Verif Africa, and it's giving me some palpitations because you are saying that some of the things, the projections of the president are unrealistic. But you've given worst case scenario, best case scenario. We look at debt service to revenue. You think that makes a lot of sense, isn't it? It looks like you are agreeing a bit in your report.
Yeah, but you have to see another thing. A component to our inflation projections have to be what the money supply growth would be. Money supply growth for worst case scenario is 5%, 5.7% or more. If you have an increase in your budget, and the last that I checked is a 36% increase in the budget when compared to the 2024 budget, you're basically telling us you're going to pump more money to the real sector. Even at a 40% implementation rate, and averagely we do 40 to 50% implementation rate every budget cycle. So budgets are generally fiction, but at the same time, they also have an effect. There's the money supply pass-through when it comes to inflation, and there's the exchange rates pass-through. Now, if you pop more naira, we know that there are unstructured dynamics that put pressure on the dollar or other foreign currencies to heighten and make the naira weaken. And we know that there are also probable theories about FAC allocation, and whenever there's FAC allocation, the naira weakens during that period that FAC has distributed monies to the state. Imagine using that unstructured pass-through transmission lens for the budget itself. You're basically telling us that, look, we're going to see money supply growth at more than 5%.
Yeah.
And if there's money supply growth at more than 5%, then I don't see how a 15%
social services
makes sense.
Look at what is being budgeted for social services. It's going to be about 6 trillion for social services. And I was asking the senator, if you pump that amount of money into the hands of people, a lot of these are going to be handouts. A lot of these are welfarist tendencies for the Nigerian people. What's your biggest, do you have a problem with that?
Yes. We unfortunately, we're not learning from the mistakes of the past. We have seen the social services funds go into the wrong hands and up to today not being accounted for. If we don't understand what social services mean, we should indeed have to get back to the drawing board to actually decide how we're going to apply our kind of social services. When you say you want to deal with students, you are going to be seeing a lot of people who have never entered any school, who are actually business people becoming students in order to access those loans. You say you want to access women with these funds, you are going to see a lot of men who are going to answer female names to access these funds. So we need to get our statistics and database right. Database must be very right for us to achieve any mileage with the social services.
But do you worry about the inflationary effect of the amount that is going to be spent on social services?
Yes, there are many other places.
Because a lot of these monies are going to be free money.
Yes. The free monies are also in many other places. If you look at the size of, yes, we're going to spend a lot of money on defense. Now, that defense, we are going to be doing hardware purchases and things like that. The kind of defense we need today in this country is not about hardware. It's about intelligence. How much are we going to be investing in technology to be able to tap into what's going on? That is where we should be spending our money. And so it's not just on social services. The money will just be all over the place.
The money that is going to be spent, perhaps the sector that is getting a lot of money is infrastructure. Yep. I know you've done a bit of a work in terms of infrastructure. Are you happy? Do you think that is somewhat going to affect the inflation? Because more jobs will come if they are spending more money in infrastructure.
I'm happy, but it's still not enough. It's a pinch in the ocean. And the reason for this is, if you look at projections for Nigeria,
trillion.
World Bank is asking us to spend at least $10 billion every year for the next 10 years on infrastructure. At least $10 billion. That's not up to $10 billion. That's not enough for the kind of deficit that we have. We have an infrastructure.
What do you think we should have budgeted for it?
Well, that number is
for the start.
Well, it's. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying it's small. What we need to see from the federal government are structural intentionality with incentives to be able to have a multiplicity of efforts in terms of infrastructure financing. So subnationals also have to help in this regard. Stuff like state government municipal loans, for instance, can generate as much liquidity as possible for the subnationals to spend on core infrastructure deficits in the subnationals. And when I mean subnationals, I mean states. When you have that complementary activity from state governors, then the federal government can start to say, okay, look, we're making progress in terms of infrastructure. But when you have a pinch in the water in that number, it's not going to solve our problem.
Now, I mean, what concerns me, I'd like us to wrap up the conversation in this end. How would this impact the average Nigerian, this budget? Should we be hopeful? We're coming from renewed hope now to restoration. But I see something here. It does look like this government is ready and getting set, because this budget is looking at tax reforms and is the revenue projections. They're very optimistic that we will make more money, about 36 trillion, isn't it? Is that what we're going to be making? And customs, FRS, these are agencies that are likely to bring more money. Customs have not ended the year. They said they've done way above 5 or 6 trillion that they estimated. So now the question here is, it does look to me that this budget is saying that the tax reform bills will cross the line.
It's not only the tax reform that they looked at when they were looking at that revenue base. The government already projected that they're going to do 2.0 million barrels. Again, you know, a lot of efforts are going on in production of gas, and so a lot of revenue base is expected to come from gas. Of course, the FRS has a lot of budget for themselves, which they are already meeting, and they're already happy they are meeting. So it may not just be about reforms that people are going to pay more, but it's going to be about being more efficient in collecting this and putting a whole lot of people that are supposed to be in that basket to do more. One area that, you know, we have challenged them to put efforts in all the social media revenues that are coming. TikTok, where are they? Mention them.
WhatsApp.
Instagram,
Instagram, A lot of monies are in all those hands of people.
And we need to
find the technology to tap into those, to make those guys
because
pay.
they're taking the revenue above our head.
In the air,
paying and it's going through those foreign.
So that should be the challenge for FIRS instead of charging people more.
What do you think, Basil, about the reform bills and what is going on here in terms of revenue? It does look to me that the president is very interested in how the reform bills will cross the line.
I think if they get efficiency right, they'll be able to meet their target. There's no doubt about that. You have to just make sure there's ease in collection, and using or leveraging on technology for that helps. But here's my concern, Shehu. My concern is the pass-through effects of that budget. It has dilapidating, terrible effects, potential terrible effects on the people, the average Nigerians. If you're pumping 36% more of money than you pumped last year, this year, it has pass-through effects on inflation. And inflation is the major reason why everybody is suffering and saying things are hard. You know, they're saying things like a bag of tomato is now going for more than 100,000 naira, you know. Things like we can only buy a bag of rice for 150,000 or 120,000 or 100,000 naira or more. That, for me, would be what the average Nigerian would want to see. Can the price of these basics, can the price of transportation reduce for me? And with that budget, putting more monetary supply pressure on inflation, we're going to see a lot more of that. The projections, again, remember, the projections for oil production, they're just not realistic. I can't see us push from 1.53 million barrels to 2 million barrels in 12 months.
Basil Abia is a co-founder of Verif Africa, and Dr. Chijioke Ekechukwu is a former Director General of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much, gentlemen, on this very interesting day. The second budget presentation of President Bola Tinubu as President of Nigeria. Well, that's our show for tonight, everyone. I'll see you guys some other time. Looks like someone is taking off. That's our show for today. I'm Sean Kimale. God bless Nigeria.